What's up, champs? Welcome to another episode of the Short Shifts Fantasy Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Keeping Carlson. I'm Louis Ezekiel, and joining me tonight, my pal and yours, Shams Benamor. Shams, how are you doing this fine Thursday evening? Welcome back. We are back from break. We have shaken off the snow that covered us as we slept, and we're ready to get back into action here.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get back out of the hibernation mode and then back into action. So let's hopefully see how I go. It's better than my goalie choices, but other than that, ready to go.
All right. Well, listen, we all know that all goalies are bad, so we're never going to get a positive choice out of there anyway. I'm so excited. We are here, of course, to talk about Michigan's trip to the national championship after a glorious Rose Bowl win over Alabama. Elon is just in my ear now. He's telling me I do have to talk about fantasy hockey. I suppose I will. Just briefly, I wanted to say, didn't obviously get to go out now, but I have been to a Rose Bowl game. Amazing setting. It's right there with the mountains. The sun sets during the third quarter. And we actually red-eyed back. I was in the band, and we red-eyed back overnight to play for Gerald Ford's funeral. So don't love that he pardoned Nixon, but it was a cool opportunity. They wanted the band to play at his funeral if at all possible. And so, obviously being a big history dork, I jumped at the opportunity. But let's move on and actually talk about some fantasy hockey here. The first thing I wanted to ask about was some interesting developments in terms of goalies. And whether, I kind of want to believe in these guys, but I wonder if you have some opinions on whether or not they truly have a chance as a real threat to start stealing some starts. One is more obvious than the other. We'll start with Martin Jones. Jones has come in and really kind of been a stabilizing force for the Leafs in goal. He hasn't been perfect, certainly, but he has 4 quality starts in his last 5 games. The 6th game was a really bad start against Buffalo, although I believe he actually came in and replaced, I think that was that horrible 9-goal game where he actually came in and replaced Samsonov after he had already allowed 5 goals. So I don't know if I necessarily want to hold that against him. But since then, like I said, 4 quality starts in 5 games, including a 31 save shutout against LA, followed up the next night by just allowing 1 goal against to Anaheim. So obviously, the kind of thing certainly that Leafs fans wanted to see. You've got Joseph Woll, who's on injured reserve and working his way back. And obviously you've got Samsonov in the minors. I didn't realize how bad things had gotten for Samsonov. I went over and checked out his Frozen Pool page. And he has around 11 goals saved below average over the course of his last 4 starts, 3 of which were really bad starts. And that includes getting pulled for that December 21st game against Buffalo. So let's start with the Leafs. Jones is on a great run. Obviously, we've seen him play well and play very poorly at times. You've got Woll working his way back. What do you think the best strategy is for folks looking to maybe take advantage of Leafs goalies moving forward for the maybe not the rest of the fantasy season, but maybe the next couple months here?
I think the big thing to take away is that the Leafs told us how much they value Jones by playing him in a back-to-back. And that is where I'm going to start, is that right now they called up a pure rookie. I believe, I forget the exact amount, but I believe he's only played like 16 games on North American ice. So that's just to say of just how raw the person behind Jones is. And then that's what I'm looking at. It's not that Jones is going to be perfect, but he's playing with a good team. He has his hot streaks. We saw that last year with Seattle. It won't last forever, but as of this moment, he's playing well. He has absolutely no one. The worst, the best path forward for starts that even on back-to-backs he's getting played, that until Woll is showing himself back in, I could see Jones getting basically every start, if not all of them. So he would be my guy, and even with those bad starts, he might even, sneak in a win because Austin Matthews gets 5 goals and they get a win. So I want all of Jones in your points leagues, and then you can kind of dance around if you're scared about his categories.
Yeah, there's certainly that run support element that you like to see, that even if, he doesn't do great, he might still be able to pull off a win. Yeah, 6 wins in 8 starts, 930 save percentage. Again, that's a pretty small sample size, but we, like you said, I love what you brought up. They showed him the trust compared to Hildeby, who, just hasn't maybe played the games and hasn't had enough opportunity to show himself out. I'm with you. I think that is a good strategy. 53% rostered across Yahoo. That number climbed 13% just yesterday. So I think the window is closing on being able to grab him. And yeah, he may not be someone who sticks on your roster the whole year. But I do think that at least, in the next little while until Woll shows up and starts to push him a little bit, he's going to be someone who is A, playing good and feeling confident, and B, is going to be able to give you some opportunities. The next one is a little more difficult, I think, because Nico Daws only has 2 starts this season with New Jersey. But his competition, hasn't been set down to the minors yet, maybe, but hasn't shown very much either. So Daws has had 2 wins and 2 starts, 2 goals against on 27 shots against Ottawa for a win, and then 3 goals against on 26 shots. Not as good, a negative goal save above average, but Hunter Shepard was getting pummeled on the other end of the ice, so it ended up still being a victory. So maybe not the kind of, back-to-back showcase we saw from Jones, but again, Vitek Vanecek has not been Ilya Samsonov, but he's not been good either. 1 quality start in his last 4, a really bad start his last outing against Boston. Do you see Daws as a guy, who could potentially steal some more starts in here, or are they going to be looking to give it back to Vanecek, as soon as they have the opportunity?
Yeah, this is going to be one of those tough ones because you could play the logic game where, if I remember correctly, Vanecek is right around where Samsonov is with the goals let in more than expected. But the issue is that with a coach, it could be like how we've seen Binnington in the past, where they stick with their guy and they might see him as the guy. So I think really what it is going to be the next game they play. If they go to Daws and he plays well again, that might be our hint. But until now, I feel like it's if you already have Daws, keep a hold of him. And if you don't, wait until that next start to see who gets announced. And then that will really show us who plays. Because even though I'm with you with the stats and the logic, but sometimes coaches just love their guys, or, the person that has the experience and they'll just let them ride, even though the numbers say that they shouldn't.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, this one I think is a lot tighter. If I am understanding you right, I would guess that you would say you prefer Jones over Daws. Even if, I guess I wouldn't, especially with, some of that defensive depth injured. I guess I wouldn't call the Devils especially more defensively gifted than the Leafs. So, is that a fair assessment? You'd say Jones first, Daws second?
Oh yeah, Jones has the clearest path to playing time, so I would take him over probably a lot of people that you would have available.
All right. Well, we have a ton of injuries and outjuries, so let's jump into those now. We're going to start with the Wild. If you could just take us through, the Minnesota Wild may be the Columbus Blue Jackets of 2023-24, but just take us through what's going on and what we can expect coming up in the near future.
Oh yeah, this is the most injured I've seen a team in a long while. So first is that Jared Spurgeon is injured again. We don't have an exact timeline on him. Foligno is injured day to day. Zuccarello looks like he might be back within about a week or so. 10 days is what the GM said. Brodin is skated for the first time, so don't really have any idea of just how long that's going to be, but at least he's back. And then just obviously Kaprizov is quote-unquote progressing. Now, on this other side is that we didn't get any additional information on Gustafsson, but we do have some idea on Wallstedt. A lot of people are asking, why hasn't he been called up? It was because he was already injured before the AHL. However, he's expected to make his return to the AHL team tomorrow night for a start. So that might be a potential for him to get a call up. We'll see how Fleury's been playing decently. So I don't know if they're going to rush calling him up, or maybe they just know how Fleury is and they like to play a 50-50 split. So, but at the very least, is that unlike with Jones, where there's absolutely no one comparing against him, is that if Fleury starts to falter or show his age a little bit, Wallstedt now is an opportunity to get called up.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people who are very excited at the prospect of getting to see Wallstedt play some games at the NHL level. So that, of course, could be really cool and exciting. All right, we also got an injury update on Troy Terry. We don't really exactly know what's going on with him. We know a few things about what is not going on with Troy Terry. Some kind of upper body injury. They confirmed that it is not a concussion. They called it not long-term and, quote, very day-to-day. So I suppose take that for what it's worth. But, pretty much, hopefully we're looking for Terry to be back in the rather near future. So keep an eye there. Obviously, that'll be a big boost for the offensive firepower for the Ducks. So if you've got any of their players or goalies, obviously that's going to be a step in the right direction. We also got an update on Jake Oettinger, who was updated from week to week to day. So obviously that's what you want to see too. Wedgwood has been okay, not great. He plays for a good team, obviously. And they've got a nice lead, 3-1 over Colorado here in the second period. Although, of course, we know with the way that Colorado can score, they might have, 4 Nathan MacKinnon goals by the time we hit publish on the podcast. So I'm not carving that final score in stone quite yet. Although one interesting thing we saw was what appeared to be a power play goal that featured Matt Duchene Joe assisting on a Joe Pavelski goal. The other assist went to Miro Heiskanen. That seems to maybe suggest that we've got a top power play that has Duchene added in and potentially has Jason Robertson taken out. So that'll be something that we will monitor and maybe have an update for you around the end of the show if we can kind of circle back to that. How about some quick updates from New Jersey and San Jose, Shams?
So talking about earlier with the injuries to New Jersey's defense, now we can add their offense as well. Palat got called as out just kind of right before the game start. He's going to be likely out the next few games. That's basically as much as what we have for him. And then as well is that this is a new term I've heard, is Timo Meier has a medium body injury. Not sure what that's going to be. And they'll have an update in the next few days. So basically just more injuries front. But the nice thing is that what I've noticed is that has helped bring people up the line. So Mercer now is playing with Nico, which is a nice upgrade from him versus that random third line he was on before. So I think this is just kind of him and Holla have been getting second line play and it making some points out of it. So that's just kind of probably most takeaway, and then just hope that these two guys are on the mend, which at least from the phrasing here doesn't seem to be long term.
Yeah, right on. And especially since we've seen Timo start to kind of turn his season around a little bit, really stinks to see this medium body injury taking him out. Hopefully for his owners, it'll be the kind of thing where we can see him come back and sort of pick up right where he left off and not hopefully have this be something that impedes his efforts moving forward. And then the last one we had, that San Jose update. Coach Quinn says he expects Logan Couture to play on the upcoming road trip. It's a pretty long one, so we don't know exactly when he might actually show up. It starts on January 9th and ends on the 16th. I don't know that picking him up and stashing him is necessarily the strategy, but certainly for the Sharks overall, it'll be a boost to them to have, another center in there who, yes, is getting up there in age, but has some skills and is going to be able to provide them, with a little bit more down the middle. So I think it'll make me feel a little bit more confident about starting a Sharks goalie if I ever found myself in a position where I, needed to root for that. But other than that, I'm not super excited about Couture's return. Do you think that's a guy who deserves to be on lists here, or what are your thoughts with his return?
I think I'm kind of in the same boat as you, but maybe a little bit potentially higher. It kind of depends on how he comes back, and as well as that, it could be a boost as well for the power play, just having another body of someone that's like not a Zadina or a Zetterlund. I have nothing against those people, but at least someone that has at least a pedigree and a history of playing on the power play. So that could be something to keep in mind. It could help that as well.
Yeah, great. We're sort of on the same page there. Maybe we might differ on another player who just recently made his return with the latest ouchery in Washington. Where Max Pacioretty, good Michigan boy, came back and made his return. Coach Carberry had some words for his performance that were not super complimentary, and he self-assessed pretty well on his own, sort of pointing out that that game was not up to his standards. He didn't really do a whole lot, but it's been almost a year since he's been on the ice, so I could see why that might be the case. We saw Patrick Kane take a little while to get his feet under himself, and then he's been pretty stalwart offensively since that sort of recovery fully took place, and he was feeling up to game speed. Do you think that Pacioretty is capable of a similar kind of renaissance, or is he more likely to, continue to kind of struggle? I know we're just looking at one game here, and that's not exactly a sample size that we want to champion, but just curious your thoughts on the return of Max Pacioretty.
And the one thing we got to keep in mind is that one game that he had last year was an injury right after another lengthy injury. So it's not like people are saying, oh yeah, he came back from last season. I wouldn't really even say last season. It's almost like he's coming back from like 2 seasons ago of just injury. So this is kind of that same way of possibly looking at how we looked at Kane, of just like a massive injury that took a lot to recover and a lot to work back to. So this is going to be one of those ones that if he turns on, it's got to be kind of more of a working towards kind of things, not just a flip of a light switch. And then also he is on a completely new team on top of that, so he doesn't even have that to fall back. So if this is a situation is that, if you're in the position to wait, I would be holding him on for a few games to give a little bit more perspective. But if you're in a shower league and you're like, haha, I got this guy, but you have some 10-team league where people that are already producing that are on the waiver wire, I would be considering swapping a bit for those kind of guys. But in a deeper league where those are hard to find, it might be worth to keep him and to give him that time to see that he could start producing.
Yeah, certainly if there's a team that could use some offensive improvement, the Washington Capitals are among that group. And I think he was playing down on the Strome line. Strome has been off the Ovechkin line. It was Connor McMichael centering with Ovechkin, and then Dylan Strome or was it Kuznetsov? I should have double checked. I think it was Kuznetsov on the power play and McMichael at even strength. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. We'll come back with some hot and cold streaks. You're listening to Short Shifts. Welcome back to Short Shifts. We've got some hot and cold streaks for you, a whole bunch of them piled up since we've been away for a little bit, people that we wanted to talk about. I want to start in Winnipeg with Vlad Namestnikov, a low ownership guy, but someone I wanted to bring up because obviously it's too late for you to play Thursday night here. But he does have Friday and Sunday games, so a nice option for you if I believe he is. I believe the Jets are along with the Caps and Anaheim in being those Friday, Sunday games this week. So those are players you might want to target if you need, if you need some help with a stream late in the week. And Namestnikov has 5 points over the last 3 games, including a goal from power play 2. Getting about 15 minutes a night, not shooting a ton. I think he has 2 shots over those 3 games, which is not ideal. But the Jets have been producing offensively. They've been kind of surviving all right in the absence of Kyle Connor. When we get to the end of this, maybe we can do a quick sort of power ranking of who we like from some of these potential ads. But that Friday, Sunday opportunity is something that I really like about Namestnikov. And then, Shams, take the lead on these couple, Flames guys here. Actually, can you do the first one and I'll do the second one here?
Sure. Yeah. So right now is that just kind of that idea is that while, we talk about Huberdeau not scoring and then Lindholm maybe not being the, worth the money that he might potentially get. The nice thing is that they seem to be scoring throughout all of their lines, and Mangiapane, who is a third-line player, I believe, at the moment, at least on the score sheet with the playing time, it's different. He has 5 points in the last 4 games, a goal and 4 assists. He's playing today, which he just gotten another assist, I believe, as we're talking, and gets to play Saturday, Sunday as well in a back-to-back. So even if you don't get on the busy Saturday, he has a Sunday stream. So that idea of just that line of him with Backlund and Coleman, who is just on a streak of his own, is just that kind of idea is that I'm a first line, first power play kind of guy, but you have to understand that when these players are consistently making points, even when they're not on that top line, top power play, you have to give them notice as well. And Mangiapane is one of those players that has done it season in, season out.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Blake Coleman because he was a guy who popped up on free agency, and I didn't even manage to grab him off waivers. I wasn't thinking about it, but I saw him just sitting there for a day when I could stream him in, and I grabbed him. I've been so happy with him ever since. Another multi-point game for him. He has 3 multi-point games in the last 5. We're 2/3 of the way through this Nashville-Calgary game, and he's got a goal and an assist. So what is that? I think we're looking at 7 points over the last 5 games. He gave me what I like to call the history teacher problem. One of the challenges of being a history teacher is, you've got these eras, but sort of trying to figure out, where do I start teaching a class, right? Because if you keep going back, there's still other important historical things that happened that contributed to the other things that you want to talk about. And I was looking back to try to figure out, okay, where do I make the cutoff to talk about where Coleman's streak started? He only has I think a few spots in there where he's gone any significant time, 2 games, maybe 1 or 2 series where he's gone 2 games without getting a point. He's just been so productive. He's not at a point per game, but he's, doing awfully well, from a spot, with some power play 2 time, not getting a ton there. I will say he's been a bit of an empty net aficionado. He's been getting a lot of these empty netters, which, maybe empty calories in terms of the real game, but are great for you in fantasy. So, I think that's the primary guy you want to grab, just because Coleman has been so hot and is at least getting a little bit of power play time. But Mangiapane is a decent secondary option if you don't have that availability. Let's head over to New Jersey. Shams, Dawson Mercer has just been a beast. Tell us about what's going on with this guy who is just starting to hit his, or very close, I should say, to hitting his proverbial breakout threshold, as described by the Dobber Hockey preseason guide.
Yeah, I think his last game was his 200th game, and I believe that's kind of the marker for a lot of these players. And then the kind of show for him is that he's had 6 points in his last 4 games, and right now he's playing with Nico with, as I mentioned before, with those injuries, and maybe with as this is going, maybe he can supplant a Palat kind of player even when he comes back, and he's on power play too. So right now, I think it's what we can all say is that he has an excellent schedule this week, and he's been kind of fitting in on the light days, which is great. But the kind of the scary thing is that I'm going to be coming from is when the people come back, and then also next week they only play on Thursday and Saturday. So it's going to be a difficult thing where I have him, and it's going to be very difficult for, even though he has played well, he was expected to play well. I forget what his ADP was, but he was drafted pretty high for his pedigree in the past. But I just don't know if that's going to be the situation of just how deep is your league and where your forwards are, if you want to be able to hold on to someone that, even though he's playing well, I'm not sure if, if the streak ends on the next Thursday and you held him on for that whole week, that's just going to be kind of a kick in the if doesn't work out. And I'm not sure I'm willing to wait that long for a person that, is on the up and up, but it's going to be one of those questions you have to ask yourself looking at your lineup.
Yeah, I think I'm going to disagree with you here. I think Mercer is a guy to hold on to. I think even with the tough week next week, I think if I saw him go to free agency, I think with an eye on the future, I would look to snatch him up. Just because he, in my opinion, I think he's really been showing some things this season, that kind of stand out and are different, from what we've seen him do before. Obviously playing with Hischier, who's been, pretty good lately. I don't think that he's going to continue shooting, at the level that he's been lately. 2 goals on 3 shots against Washington, 1 for 1 against Ottawa, 1 for 3 against Columbus, 1 for 1 against Edmonton. Like, that's too hot. But, I think it also points to the sort of opportunity that he's been getting. And starting 5 games ago, we see him go from, I guess he had 18:33 on November 30th, but for the most part, we're looking at 13, 11, 14, maybe 17 minutes here and there. The last 5 games, 21 minutes, 20 and a half minutes, 20 minutes, 19 minutes, 20 and a half minutes. Those big minutes that he's getting, I think, are so appealing. Going to give him more opportunities to shoot, going to give him more opportunities to participate. So I look at that trajectory and I think that's a guy that I want to have on my team, even if he runs into some schedule troubles here and there. So that's sort of how I'm looking at it. I think, next week's schedule be damned. Get Dawson Mercer on my team. That's the way I'm looking at it. One more pair of teammates, actually 3 teammates to talk about, but 2 of them are in the hot section and one of them is in the cold. I'll let you take the lead here because I know one of these guys is on your team. Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov, just crushing it lately. Give us the lowdown.
All right, it's basically Svechnikov is back. He had that injury at the start of the year, and it took him a while to come back, and then he ended up getting injured again. And I think, if I remember correctly, there's been kind of some murmurs and whatnot of like, oh, did people mess up drafting him? Oh, is he ever going to hit his ceiling for points? Well, the last 5 games, he's showing that he can, with getting 11 points in his last 5. And with Aho alongside him, a lot of those points he has, for Aho is 13 in his last 5. So both of them are just blaring hot on the first power play and on the top line together. And a lot of them have been kind of combined together. So the way I look at this is that there's not much you can really do, for example, with the Svechnikov and the Aho. But the way I look at it is that Aho was drafted in the 4th round, I believe, in Cacupful, Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League. Go to cacupful.com for more info. And the idea is that with this streak together of him having another goal scorer with him, usually it was him kind of carrying a line with a Bunting and another defensive person, and he would be the defensive, the Bergeron that could score with no one with him. But if he's going to be playing with Svechnikov, both on the power play and on even strength, I could see him as like a 3rd or 2nd round value. So maybe depends on how you're trade with other people, maybe someone just thinks they're selling high. This might be, an Elon's buy high kind of situation at this moment. But if I have him or either one of these, I feel like this is something that's going to stay along as long as they're both together.
Yeah, I think they're just making beautiful music together, and I want to see it continue for as long as possible. Svechnikov, just with these crazy multi-point games, really, breaking through. And obviously Aho has just been money all season. I think people who missed out on drafting him might be kicking themselves a little bit. We do have to talk about a bit of a cold streak there from Toivo Teravainen. Nothing in the last 4 games. He's kind of been that third wheel with these, I think the contrast is really why we put him on here, because Aho and Svechnikov, playing so well. And, he's not out there with them on the power play, so that hurts a little bit, although, as you pointed out, both power plays have been doing quite well lately. But just to see Teravainen not get anything over the last 4 games while, you told us the numbers, 11 and 13 points over the last 5 for his line mates. He's just kind of been a non-entity, at least in terms of having the offense kind of move through him. So, I've seen him hit the waiver wire in a lot of leagues, including my Cupful division. I know Brian smiled when you explained what Cupful meant and gave out the website. So a good one certainly to include. And yeah, I mean, it's such a weird spot because he could find stumble his way into some pucks that his teammates are going to put in and be a valuable point contributor here down the line, but just we haven't seen it happen lately, and it's kind of odd that it's been so difficult. And then one last, another guy who's been so steady and so productive this season, but a little worrisome to see Filip Hronek go 4 games without a point. Outside of kind of one sort of, I guess we had the big game against Ottawa, was it, where they won 6-3? They put 7 on San Jose as well. So yeah, there have been some high scoring games in there. Brock Besser has kind of been along for the ride. He has nothing in the last 3, and then nothing through 2 periods tonight against St. Louis. So maybe those two can get each other going. I wouldn't recommend getting rid of Hronek. He's been the best non-power play 1 defenseman in fantasy this season, by my estimation. I guess there's some other guys out there who might challenge a little bit for the title. Your Jake Wallman types. Jacob Trouba's always, quite productive, but, I give him some time. I think it's ugly to see them all in there together, but not maybe a huge surprise to see a defenseman go a few games without getting a point. I would not be looking to jump off, of Philly Hronek. How about you?
Yeah, I think it's that same boat. It's just kind of more, as you mentioned, a side of just kind of the team in general. The thing that is kind of troubling for me is that in the last 4 games, and I'm including the game that he's playing, is that he has 0 shots in a couple of those. So it's just a kind of situation where no shots, no points, and he doesn't block a lot. So it's just going to be one of those situations where you're going to have to bite your tongue and just kind of hold there. Is that if he's not pointing for you, he's going to get you nothing. So it's going to be a tough pill to swallow while you wait it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that's true anytime you've got kind of a primary points defenseman who maybe doesn't give you a whole lot of those periffs when the points are not there. And, it can happen with some consistency. That gets pretty scary. And then, they don't give you a whole lot else in the meantime. So, hoping the best for Hronek. I hope he picks it back up. Been a very cool story this year. Shams, that brings us to the end of our episode here. So nice to be back in action with you. Thank you all for joining us. You can give us a follow at ShortShiftsKK, Brian and Elon at Keeping Carlson. Game day tweets for all the best information from Twitter, including team by team and searchable tweets by player name. I used it a bunch today. Visit that site and other great sites we use to research our episodes at Yahoo, Frozen Tools, Natural Stat Trick. Our intro and outro music was created by Pat Roach. And until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short.